Ike Turner died on a Wednesday. Tina Turner said 11 words. The world has been thinking about them ever since. December 12th, 2007. A Wednesday. In a house in San Marcos, California, a quiet suburb north of San Diego, the kind of place where nothing remarkable is supposed to happen, Ike Turner was found dead. He was 76 years old. The cause of death was a cocaine overdose, though his body had been failing in other ways for years. Emphysema eating away at his lungs, high blood pressure working quietly against his heart. The cocaine simply arrived first. Within hours of the news breaking, every major entertainment outlet, every journalist who had spent the better part of 3 decades covering the Tina Turner story, all of them had the same question. What would she say? Her spokesperson issued a statement. Not Tina herself. Her spokesperson. Because some things you don't say yourself. Some things you send through someone else, through the thinnest possible layer of distance, just to make clear that even this much engagement, even these words, cost you something you would rather not spend. The statement was 2 sentences, 11 words. Tina hasn't had any contact with Ike in more than 30 years. No further comment will be made. That was it. No grief, no complicated tribute, no carefully worded acknowledgement of a life that had intersected with hers for nearly 2 decades. No mention of the music, no mention of the children they had raised, no mention of anything that might suggest she had thought about this moment, the moment he died, for even a second longer than it took her spokesperson to type 21 words and press send. The world, somewhat shaken, did not know what to do with that. Some called it cold. Some called it the bravest thing they had ever seen a woman say about a man who had hurt her. Some called it a masterclass in the dignity of silence. All of them, in their different ways, were looking at the same truth, a truth Tina Turner had been living for 30 years. Before we can talk about what Tina said, we have to talk about who Ike Turner was. Not the abuser, not the villain of her story, the full man. Because understanding the full man, the whole complicated, talented, damaged, dangerous human being, is the only way to understand why 11 words said everything. Ike Turner was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi in November 1931. Clarksdale was the heart of the Mississippi Delta, the birthplace of the blues, a place of extraordinary musical richness wrapped inside extraordinary poverty and the particular cruelty of the American South in the 1930s. When Ike was 8 years old, a group of white men came to his house. They dragged his father, Ike Turner, out onto the street. They beat him nearly to death. The reason was that he had spoken to a white woman, or been in proximity to one, or been accused of something by someone who needed an accusation. It didn't really matter which. His father survived. But the boy who stood in that doorway watching, 8 years old, old enough to understand what he was seeing, too young to know what to do with it, was never quite the same. He had learned something that day in Clarksdale that he would spend the rest of his life acting out. That power is taken, not given. That the world will hurt you if you let it see you as powerless. That the only protection is control. He taught himself guitar. He formed a band. He became, by his early 20s, one of the most gifted musical minds in the Mississippi Delta. A man who could hear a song once and arrange it from memory, who could hear the potential in a raw sound before anyone else could. In 1951, he helped record Rocket 88 with Jackie Brenston and his Delta Cats at Sun Studio in Memphis. Many music historians consider it the first rock and roll record ever made. Ike Turner was 20 years old. He went on to build the Kings of Rhythm. He discovered talent. He produced, arranged, directed. Every musician who passed through his orbit said the same thing, that as a musician, as a producer, as someone who understood what a sound could be and should be, there was nobody like him. He was also a man who had internalized, completely and permanently, the lesson of that day in Clarksdale. He needed to control everything. including people, especially people he loved.
Tina Turner was 17 when she first sang with his band, 18 when she recorded A Fool in Love and became somebody, 19 when the abuse started. She documented it later in I, Tina, her autobiography, published in 1986, when she had finally put enough distance between herself and those years to look at them clearly. She did not spare the details. She did not reach for euphemism. She wrote about his fists, about the coffee he poured on her, about the jaw he broke, about the black eye she covered every night with stage makeup before walking out under the lights to sing for crowds who had no idea. He beat her before shows. He beat her after shows. He beat her in hotel rooms while their children slept in the next room. He beat her in limousines. He beat her in dressing rooms with other people just outside the door. He told her, "You have no talent without me. You have no name without me. I made you. Without me, you're nothing." She believed him. For years, for most of those 16 years, she believed him. Not because she was weak, but because that is what sustained, targeted, relentless abuse does to a person. It dismantles the part of you that knows your own worth until you can no longer tell the difference between what is true about yourself and what you have been told. She tried to leave, more than once. Each time he found her. Each time the consequences were worse than staying. Until July 3, 1976, the Statler Hotel in Dallas. 36 cents and a mobile gas card, and a decision that was quiet and total and final. She ran across a highway. She walked into a hotel lobby. She sat in a presidential suite for 3 days. And then she filed for divorce. Act 3. 30 years of nothing. 8:30 to 12. The divorce was finalized in 1978, and then 30 years of nothing. No contact, no communication, no statements, no acknowledgement, no public back and forth of the kind that famous exes so often cannot resist. Just nothing. She moved forward with the focused, single-minded momentum of someone who has decided that looking backward is simply not an option. Private dancer, the Grammys, Wembley, Rio, Switzerland, Erwin Bach. A second life so completely built from scratch that the years with Ike Turner became, if not erased, then contained, filed away in the part of herself she had already dealt with, already processed, already made peace with enough to function. Ike Turner did not move forward with the same efficiency. He spent years in and out of legal trouble. In 1989, he was convicted of cocaine possession and served a prison sentence. His career flickered occasionally, a Grammy in 2006 for a blues album, but never fully recovered from the wreckage of what he had done and who he had become. He gave interviews in which he disputed Tina's account of the abuse. "Sure, I've slapped Tina," he said. "We had fights. There were times when I punched her. But I never beat her." The distinction he was drawing between hitting and beating was one that satisfied no one except himself. In 2007, the last year of his life, he told Jet magazine that he still loved Tina Turner, that he had written her a letter, an apology for putting her and the kids through that kind of stuff. He held up the letter in the interview. He showed it to the reporter. He had written it. He had it in his hands. He never sent it. He died with the letter somewhere in his house, undelivered, never given to the person it was written for. When the news broke on December 12, 2007, the world looked to Tina Turner. What would she say? Would she be gracious, the way public figures are expected to be when someone from their past dies? Would she reach for forgiveness? Would she say something that gave the audience the narrative it was hoping for? The complicated, human, "I've made my peace" statement that would have been so easy to write and so dishonest to mean. She said 11 words. Tina hasn't had any contact with Ike in more than 30 years. No further comment will be made. Not even her own words, her spokesperson's words, which is itself a statement. I will not speak about this. I will not dignify this moment with my own voice. I will not give him even that. Some were troubled by it. Jeanette Turner, one of Ike's other ex-wives, told reporters, "There's something called forgiveness. I know that Ike was hurt, and I know that she was hurt. But there's something called forgiveness." Tina Turner did not respond to that either. She spoke eventually to the New York Times in the days after the statement, when the pressure to say something had built to a level even silence couldn't hold back. She said, "I don't know if I could ever forgive all that Ike ever did to me, but Ike's dead, so we don't have to worry about him." Read those sentences slowly. I don't know if I could ever forgive all that Ike ever did to me. She is not pretending. She is not performing grace she does not feel. She is saying, forgiveness, in the full sense, may not be available. And I am not going to lie about that. But Ike's dead. 3 words. A fact stated without drama, without triumph, without grief. Just a fact. So we don't have to worry about him. We. She said we. As if speaking for every person who had ever been hurt by him, every woman who had passed through the orbit of Ike Turner, and telling all of them, it's over. He can't do anything to anyone anymore. We can put this down. Act 5. What forgiveness actually is. 1530 to 1730. The world wanted Tina Turner to forgive Ike Turner, because forgiveness is a tidy ending. It resolves things. It closes loops. It gives everyone watching what they came for: the reconciliation, the peace, the sense that the story has been wrapped up in a way that everyone can feel comfortable with. Tina Turner did not give the world a tidy ending. She gave it something more honest than that. She had said, years before Ike died, that she had done the work, through Buddhism, through chanting, through the discipline of deliberately choosing where to put her energy, to release the anger she had carried. Not because Ike deserved her peace, but because she did. I had to let go of the hate, she said. Not for him, for me. That distinction, for him versus for me, is the most important thing anyone has ever said about what forgiveness actually means in the real world, for real people who have survived real things. The world uses the word forgiveness to mean something given to the person who hurt you, a lifting of accountability, an absolution, a gift. What Tina Turner did was something entirely different. She took something back for herself, the energy she had been spending on pain and anger, and she used it for living. She did not give Ike Turner anything. She gave herself everything. And when he died, when the world knocked on her door and said, "Now, finally, will you forgive him?" she said, in effect, "I already did what I needed to do, for myself, years ago. His death does not reopen what I closed." Tina hasn't had any contact with Ike in more than 30 years. No further comment will be made. Ike Turner was buried in Clarksdale, Mississippi, the town he had come from. The town where an 8-year-old boy had stood in a doorway and watched men hurt his father, and decided, in the way that children decide things that stay with them forever, that he would never be the powerless one in any room. He spent his whole life keeping that promise to himself, and it cost him everyone who ever loved him. Tina Turner did not attend the funeral. She was in Switzerland, in the house by the lake, with Irvin Bach. Living. She would live for 16 more years after Ike Turner died. 16 years. The exact same number of years she had spent inside the marriage. As if the universe, with its particular sense of accounting, had decided she should get back every year she had given him. Year for year, hour for hour. A life for a life. She spent those 16 years getting married, surviving a stroke, surviving cancer, surviving kidney failure, writing 2 more books, living quietly in a house by a lake in a country that let her be ordinary. Ike Turner wrote an apology. He never sent it. Tina Turner received no apology. She did not wait for one. She had already moved on 31 years before he died. His death was not a chapter closing. For her, the chapter had ended in a Dallas hotel alley on the 3rd of July, 1976, and nothing that happened in December 2007 could reopen it. Tina hasn't had any contact with Ike in more than 30 years. No further comment will be made. 11 words. Everything she needed to say. Nothing she didn't. Subscribe to Tina Turner Untold. Every week, the stories behind the legend. The ones she told, the ones she didn't, and the ones that say everything in 11 words or less. New story every week.